Trigger warning, angst, mentions of torture. Chapter 14, nerves. Atsumu stirs from his fitful sleep to the alluring scent of tamagoyaki wafting through the air. His nose twitches, catching a delightful scent filling the room and making his stomach grumble like he hasn't eaten in years. He blinks away the remnants of a restless night's sleep and finds himself lying in Osamu's bed, the soft morning light filtering through the curtains and filling the room with a warmth that Atsumu cannot feel. He's at home. Osamu is back. Something feels off. His eyelids are heavy, and he feels inexplicably weak, almost as if he'd spent the entire night shedding unseen tears, though his cheeks remain dry. It's strange. He feels strange, hollow, empty, as if there's something ripped from his heart. But Osamu is here, right? He should be fine. Atsumu runs a hand through his tousled hair, trying to shake off the dull ache of loneliness that lingers within him. He contemplates whether his lack of sleep is causing this unease, but he can't remember waking up a single time. Honestly, he can't even remember how he ended up in Osamu's bed. With a sigh, he pushes the covers away and rises from the mattress, letting his bare feet touch the ground. He rubs his eyes to get used to the light, stretches his body, and only now notices how wrecked he actually is. His muscles ache, his wounds burn, but nothing is as bad as the void in his heart. Dark curls, onyx eyes. Will Atsumu ever see them again? He swallows, forcing back the sting in his eyes. Atsumu stands up, wondering if Osamu is alright, if he has slept, if there is anything he can do for him. He feels a little better when he spots his twin in the kitchen, watching him preparing breakfast. Samu. Good morning, he says as he prepares tamagoyaki. Morning, greets Atsumu and drags himself to the counter. A hot cup of tea is already waiting for him. Osamu turns around and serves him the food. Atsumu takes a sip of the tea and stares at his brother with wide eyes, more than grateful. You should treat that, Osamu says as he serves himself breakfast across from Atsumu and sets the pan aside. He taps his own cheek and stares at his brother when he's facing him again. It'll leave a nasty scar. Atsumu puts the cup down. It's okay. You shouldn't underestimate Rin's arrows. Atsumu swallows. He was about to ask how he knew it was sooner, but of course, Osamu knows Rin's weapons and the damage they can cause inside out. Atsumu nods, glances at his food, and is suddenly less hungry. Yeah, he mumbles and pokes at his food. Osamu takes a seat and grabs his chopsticks, pauses briefly before starting to eat, and hey, that's good, right? Because the day Osamu would refuse food would be the day they would perish. Atsumu looks at him from under his lashes, letting his gaze roam over the bare arms that aren't covered by Osamu's grey shirt. Atsumu spots scars, not many, but they are there. He notices marks of constriction around his wrists, slowly fading. Atsumu swallows thickly. What did they do to him? I carried you over to my bed, Osamu begins, not taking his eyes off his food. You're knocked out after eating and I didn't want you to strain your back. Their eyes meet and oh, that explains why Atsumu woke up in Osamu's room. Did you sleep? Atsumu asks, but his brother just shrugs. Hardly. Atsumu hums. He frowns and averts his gaze from Osamu, continuing to poke at his food but not bringing the chopsticks anywhere near his mouth. Osamu also turns his attention back to his breakfast. He looks tired, exhausted. It was a little bit better when you were lying next to me, but... Atsumu's gaze snaps up, listening intently to his brother. Osamu looks so worn out as he stares back into his brother's eyes. I don't Tsumu. I keep dreaming these weird things the second I close my eyes. What things? Atsumu frowns a little harder. The lingering sense of unease tells him there's more to it than mere exhaustion. Osamu hesitates, his chopsticks pausing midair, and for a moment, it seems like he's struggling to find the right words to express what's been haunting him. After a deep breath, he finally begins, his voice a tad shaky. I keep dreaming about Rin, Osamu admits, brows scrunched together. He's dying every time I close my eyes. I see it so vividly. Tsumu. He's hurt, bleeding, and I can't do anything to stop it. Atsumu listens in stunned silence, his chest tightening as the images Osamu's words conjure up churn in his mind. He can't imagine how long these thoughts must have been plaguing him. He can't imagine how Osamu must feel, having to cope alone all this time. Guilt swells within him. And if it's not Rin, it's you. Osamu continues, his voice wavers even more, and he lowers his gaze back to his food. I see it like a movie playing in my head. You get in shot, bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and... Osamu's voice cracks. He puts the chopsticks aside and covers his face with his hands, exhaling deeply. Fuck. Atsumu's throat feels dry and constricted like he's swallowed sand. The last image Osamu had seen of his brother was just that, him leaving Atsumu bleeding after he got shot. And then his brother doesn't show up for 2 damn years. How is he supposed to keep up hope? The weight of Osamu's nightmare settles heavily on Atsumu's shoulders, making it difficult for him to breathe. He can't bear to see his brother suffering like this. Will it ever stop? Atsumu pushes his untouched breakfast aside, his appetite long gone, if it was even truly there to begin with. He reaches across the counter and places a hand on Osamu's forearm, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Samu, he says softly, his voice filled with empathy and worry. Yeah, it's. No one's dying, okay? We're all alive. Atsumu still feels the barrel of Kayumi's pistol pressed against his forehead. He closes his eyes and tries to take a deep breath. Osamu looks up, his dark eyes seeking reassurance in his brother's gaze. I just don't know how to make it stop, Atsumu. It feels so surreal. What if this is just a dream? What if I wake up and you're suddenly no longer here? No. Atsumu shakes his head. No, Samu, I ain't going anywhere. I'm here. And so is Rin. Shit. Atsumu can see the vulnerability in Osamu's eyes, a rare display of weakness from his brother known for his unshakable resolve. He scrubs a hand over his face and pushes his blonde hair back, sighing deeply and giving Osamu another squeeze. What if we ask Rin to stay with us? Just so you can make sure we're both here as soon as one of your dreams returns? Atsumu suggests. You don't have to talk or anything. He'll stay away from you if that's what you want, but Atsumu swallows the lump in his throat. Osamu's eyes are red. Osamu's eyes are never red. I think it'll be good if he's here. And if he pisses you off, I'll kick him out. Atsumu begins, quipping. I mean, really, I'll kick his ass so hard he'll wish your dream was true. Osamu almost chokes on a half laugh half sob and it puts a small smile on Atsumu's lips too. He presses his fingertips against his forehead and tries to calm himself. Osamu takes a deep breath before removing his hands and returning his gaze to his brother's eyes. I dunno, Atsumu. He hesitates. I don't think I'm ready to talk to him yet. You don't have to, Atsumu assures him. Rin's the last person to push you into anything. Samu, he loves you. Atsumu stops himself and gulps, averting his gaze. He cares about you. He only wants the best for you. Their eyes meet again. Believe me. Osamu's hesitation lingers. He's torn between his brother's earnest request and the reluctance that has been building within him over time. Atsumu notices the uncertainty in Osamu's gaze, the internal struggle that's far from over. Atsumu no sooner is a sensitive topic for him, but he also knows that Suna, along with Atsumu, is the person who means the most to him. If anyone can help him get over his fears, it's only the two of them, and Atsumu knows for sure Suna would do anything to help Osamu heal. He's been looking out for you know, even when you didn't know it. Atsumu begins, catching Osamu's full attention. Rin and I, we were fighting quite a bit. Atsumu frowns and glances down. I wasn't always fair to him, often blamed him for your disappearance. Atsumu slowly brings his gaze back up and stares into Osamu's widened eyes. His brother looks astonished, seems speechless, as if it's the last thing he expected. You two seemed so close. Osamu mumbles and Atsumu swallows, nodding in agreement. I guess we've seen the worst sides of each other, that's what bonds us together. But it got too much at some point. We were both on edge, all we wanted was to finally find you, so we kept looking and looking and looking and... Atsumu's voice breaks. He presses the heels of his hands against his forehead so Osamu can't see him, elbows on top of the counter. He takes a moment to collect himself, his body shaking. 2 years flood his brain. 2 years without his brother. 2 years of anxiety about whether he is still alive or not. 2 years of uncertainty about whether they can be reunited or not. The lonely nights, the empty feeling, no one truly understanding Atsumu. Except for... Atsumu takes a deep breath. When he peers back into Osamu's eyes, his vision turns slightly blurry. His eyes must be as red as his brother's. He doesn't shed a tear, though. Samu, there hasn't been a day, not a second, when I haven't thought of you. A year ago, I left in Arizaki, abandoned Rin, because I couldn't bear to be in a place that's supposed to be our home when you're not there. Atsumu exhales deeply, shakily. Rin and I, we split up because we hoped that would increase the chances of finding you, and because we really needed a break from each other. He did everything, Samu, everything he could to get you back. You can't imagine how desperate he was, how desperate we were. And I'm your brother, I'm nothing without you. It's natural for me to feel this way, but Rin feeling the same way just proved to me how much he actually cares about you. Atsumu's words cut deep into Osamu's soul, revealing the pain and sacrifice he, too, has endured in his absence. Osamu trembles, his gaze focused on a spot between them because he can't bring himself to look into Atsumu's eyes. Atsumu knows it's a lot. He just wants him to feel okay. Atsumu, Osamu says, his voice soft and sincere. He reaches out and gently grasps Atsumu's hand. I'm sorry you had to go through all that because of me. No. Atsumu's eyes glisten with unshed tears. He squeezes Osamu's hand, their gazes locked in a profound moment of understanding and reconnection. I'd go through it all again if it meant finding you. It's not your fault. If anything, I owe you an apology, Samu. Atsumu gulps, his gaze roaming over Osamu's exposed arms again. His brother has no reason to feel guilty about any of this. Only Atsumu can be blamed for this. It was his mission, his recklessness, his arrogance that got them into this situation in the first place. He frowns. I'm sorry Samu, for everything that has happened to you, for everything you had to endure, for having to wait so long. I am sorry. God, I am so incredibly Osamu gets up from his seat and rounds the counter. He pulls Atsumu up from the chair right into his arms and hugs him, holding him as tight as he can. Atsumu gasps at first, overwhelmed by the sudden proximity of his brother. But then he melts, allows himself to fall, reaches into his twin shirt, and lets his brother bury his face in the crook of his neck. Atsumu keeps holding him, tighter and tighter. "I'm sorry, Samu," he murmurs. "I'll be here for you now." The evening light casts a warm, golden hue across the room, shining on the twins as they are sprawled on the couch, their bodies draped in a comfortable tangle. Atsumu's head lays comfortably in Osamu's lap, his legs thrown carelessly over the backrest. His eyes are half-lidded, heavy with exhaustion, as his brother gently combs his fingers through Atsumu's blonde hair. The steady, rhythmic motion does him good, calms him in a way nobody else would be able to. It's a sensation he's missed, the soothing touch of his brother, the familiar presence that brings him solace, a gesture of comfort that feels more reassuring than words can ever convey. Atsumu cherishes moments like these, the simple, unspoken connection that has defined their bond for as long as he can remember. He has his brother back, and in this moment, the world feels a little less wrong. The TV plays softly in the background, but neither of them pays much attention to it. Their lazy day has turned into a moment of quiet and peace, a break from the chaos that has wrecked their lives for too long. Atsumu closes his eyes, basking in the comforting strokes of Osamu's fingers, relishing the sense of normalcy that this simple act brings. The sun dips lower on the horizon and casts long shadows throughout the room. Osamu's voice breaks through the tranquil mood, drawing Atsumu back to the present. "Yeah, blonde again," he remarks, his fingers not missing a beat as they continue their gentle exploration of Atsumu's hair. A soft chuckle escapes Atsumu's lips as he tilts his head slightly to look up at his brother. "What? You gonna join me and return to gray?" he teases, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Osamu snorts, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "In your dreams," he retorts, a hint of amusement lacing his voice. "Or, come on, Samu. Don't leave me hanging now," Atsumu quips. He can't help but push the teasing further. Osamu chuckles, shaking his head. "I haven't made a lot of mistakes in my life, but dyeing my hair was definitely one of them." Atsumu smirks, his voice taking on a playful tone. "Well, that gray hair of yours is what caught Tsunarin's attention when he first came to Inarizaki, you know? You wanna tell me he was a mistake too?" And for a moment, time seems to stand still. It was stupid to utter those words. Atsumu regretted them the moment they left his lips. He was too absorbed in their playful banter, letting himself be tempted by their lightheartedness to slip into old patterns. But he can't do that now. Not yet. He doesn't know if he can do it ever again. The only thing Atsumu knows is that he needs to be more careful about what he says. Speaking of Suna, wrong choice. Atsumu watches as his brother's expression changes, and the mirth of their playful banter is replaced by a deeper, more contemplative mood. He notices the change in his brother's demeanor, the mischievous sparkle in his eyes fading away. Osamu's eyes lose their focus, and he gazes at a point far beyond the room as if peering into the past, back to the days when the world was different, and they were all busy turning each other's lives into a sweet living hell. Back when Rin was just a friend and not a stranger he couldn't even look in the eyes. Osamu's soul is crying. Atsumu can feel it. "Samu," he begins, his tone softer and more serious. His playful smile fades from his face and he throws his legs off the backrest, turns around, and shifts back to his knees, looking directly into Osamu's grey eyes. Atsumu shakes his head. "Forget what I said. I'm sorry." "Nah." Osamu gulps, frowns, and stares at his hands, picking at his skin. "It's okay." His gaze remains fixed on his fingers, avoiding the weight of Atsumu's eyes. There's a hesitant, troubled look in Osamu's eyes. A reflection of the past, the pain he had to endure. Atsumu wants to take it away from him. "A few months ago," Osamu says, his voice low, "I might have considered Rin as a mistake. I might have considered everything as a mistake." Atsumu gulps and watches as his brother's words sink in. They wanted to break him, for whatever reason. But his brother is strong. It's not pity that Atsumu feels. Instead, his blood boils with anger, his heart heavy with the guilt he carries. Osamu had to go through hell because of him. He almost lost himself just because of Atsumu while he did what? Fool around? With Yakuza on top of that? Didn't Rin warn him from the very beginning? Osamu's fingers finally still, and he glances up, meeting Atsumu's gaze. They made me doubt, Atsumu. A hell of a lot of times. Osamu swallows, averting his gaze briefly. Atsumu feels his sorrow, wants to reach out and tell him that it's okay now, that he's here. "I think they almost had me. I almost got to the point where I would have done anything for him. 'Cause I just didn't feel anything anymore, you know?" Atsumu frowns, swallowing thickly as his brother's words hit him. "At what fucking cost, Atsumu?" "Yeah. Rin was right. What happened?" Atsumu whispers because he can't hold himself back anymore. He clutches the cushion of the backrest. He's pissed, desperate, guilty. "Sorry. What took me so long?" he wonders. "Why didn't I find Samu sooner?" Images of Kayumi kissing him flood his mind. Atsumu closes his eyes. Back then when you passed out I tried to stop your bleeding, and then I wanted to go back to find our marks, to finish them off for good, you know? So, we wouldn't have to look over our shoulders anymore. It was a bullet shot straight out of your own gun. A lump rises in Atsumu's throat, his eyes sting. As Osamu speaks, his voice trembles with the weight of the memories he's forced to confront, the darkness he's reluctant to bring to the surface. It's evident that sharing these experiences with Atsumu is a painful process, like peeling away old scars to expose the raw, tender flesh beneath. He takes a deep breath, his gaze shifting to the far corner of the room. His eyes look distant, lost in the haunting past. Atsumu's stomach churns. I was ambushed. Osamu's voice is hushed and there's a catch in his voice, as though he's confessing secrets to the walls. There were too many of them. Atsumu. I couldn't fight them all on my own. Atsumu listens intently, his chest constricted with guilt, anger, and a profound sense of loss. He remains silent, unable to find the words to offer solace or understanding to his brother. The room itself seems to hold its breath, the tension in the air thickening with every word Osamu reveals. Who? Atsumu then finally asks, almost whispering, his voice steady when his blood is seething. There's a storm brewing behind his calm facade, his grip on the cushion tightens. Osamu's eyes remain distant, but they return to the present as he utters a name that sends shivers down Atsumu's spine. Daisho. He gulps. The name is like a curse, a reminder of the relentless chaos that has plagued their lives. Atsumu has heard enough to know what Daisho wants. His name has come up over and over again the last few weeks, and if it wasn't his, it was the name of his fucking right-hand man, Terashima. He wants control. He wants power. And he's willing to go to horrifying lengths to achieve it. Kidnapping Osamu is just one example of what he is willing to do. Atsumu knows that much. He'll bring them down. He wants to take over Hyogo, Osamu explains, his voice still laced with pain. He wants to get a grip on Inarizaki, wants to expand his territory and take over Japan or shit like that. His voice breaks and Atsumu's heart aches. What did they do to you? He stares at his brother with compassion. He knows very well that they've tried to force Inarizaki's weaknesses out of him, that they've made him suffer until he would tell them anything they wanted. And Osamu is a tough one. If he speaks of almost folding, Atsumu can only imagine how much he actually had to endure. He clenches his jaw. Daisho knows Kita, the twins, and Suna are the core of Inarizaki, and they need to be eliminated before he can strike and take over both Inarizaki and Hyogo. It's a chilling realization of the threat that looms over them. A war that's just about to begin. A battle Atsumu is willing to fight. What happened to you? He whispers, his voice thick with emotion. Atsumu is beyond enraged at the thought of what his brother went through. He's going to kill them all. Osamu hesitates, his gaze drifting to his arms, where the scars and bruises are slowly starting to fade. They are grim proof of the horrors he must have witnessed and suffered. It's a moment of heavy silence, an eerie calm before Osamu begins to speak. I felt lost. Atsumu. Osamu's voice is low, he sounds defeated. I was beaten and tortured, forced to see the awful ways Daisho and his men killed people. Osamu frowns and so does Atsumu. His heart aches for the pain and suffering his brother has endured, for the torment that he couldn't prevent or even share. He knows Osamu must have felt so alone, and Atsumu hates he couldn't do anything about it. The screams. Fuck. The loud, haunting screams every night. It was maddening. I thought I was going insane. Atsumu can't find the words to respond, overwhelmed by the brutality of Osamu's experiences. He feels his heart pounding in his chest as he imagines the hell his brother lived through. 2 years. 2 fucking years. He wants to say something, to offer words of comfort or support, but they die down before they even have a chance to come out. Atsumu is left with a tangled mess of emotions. Guilt courses through him, not just for what his brother went through but also for his own actions and choices that inadvertently led to Osamu's torment. He's never going to forgive himself for that. You know, I was thinking. Osamu huffs and brushes his hair out of his face, gripping his roots and returning his gaze to his twin. Atsumu gulps. I was thinking that everyone's here, that everything's gonna be fine because we're in Inarizaki, right? We're the strongest. Osamu's voice dies down. He gnaws at his lower lip, averts his eyes back to his hands which are now picking at his skin again. He doesn't have to explain further what he felt. Atsumu understands wordlessly. The longer his brother must have thought about it, the less it added up for how long he was stuck there. Why would it possibly take someone as strong and independent as Inarizaki so long to find him and help him? Could it be that they simply forgot about him? Has he been replaced with Atsumu? Did Atsumu forget about him too? Dart. Even sooner? Atsumu swallows thickly. How much did they need to have brainwashed Osamu to make him believe all that? Osamu continues, his voice shaky, but his resolve is evident. Daisho's aim was clear. He knew that by breaking me, he could strike and take control. He wanted information from me about our marks, about Kita, about you and Rin, Aaron, Jin, Omimi, about everyone, really. Osamu exhaled shakily. He wanted to know every weakness we had. But you didn't say a word all this time. The anger inside Atsumu intensifies, a burning fire pulsing in his veins. He clenches his fists, knuckles white. His jaw tightens. Osamu's gaze snaps back to his brother. I almost did. Atsumu's heart races. With anger, with guilt. Daisho will pay for what he's done. Osamu's eyes never leave Atsumu's, as if he's laying bare his soul, sharing the darkest corners of his experience with his twin, the deep-seated pain of his nearly broken resolve. Atsumu swallows hard. He wishes he could take all of his brother's suffering onto himself, to bear the weight of it on his own. It should have been me, not you. It's always Yakuza that's ruining our fucking lives, Osamu says quietly, fed up with experiencing it over and over again. His gaze is cold, his hatred obvious. I am so done with it, Tsumu. I'm so done with this bullshit. He exhales shakily, exasperatedly brushing a hand through his hair. He reclines, pushing his back into the cushions and closing his eyes to calm himself. First the death of their parents, then him being kidnapped. If he only knew who Atsumu had been messing around with for the past few months. Let them all rot in hell, Osamu mutters, frowning. Then he stares into widened, golden eyes. Daisho, Oikawa, Ashijima, they call themselves the Big Three and bring nothing but misery. Atsumu gulps. I don't mind cutting their throats one by one and watching them bleed. None of them is better than the other. And Atsumu begs to differ, because yes, he really does think that there are people within the Yakuza who mean no harm. Oikawa and his men proved it to him. Kageyama isn't someone who has been hostile to him. Naruki, who surrendered without a fight. Kyumi, whom he has learned to loathe. Atsumu averts his eyes and takes a deep breath before Osamu can see how the mere thought of this man throws him off. Yeah, he whispers instead, wondering. But are we even better than them? Text messages between Tsunarin and Atsumu. Where are you? Out for a mission. Why? How's Samu? You gonna sleep on our couch from now on? Talk to him and I'll cut your throat. He's hanging in there. Fuck you. At least give me your bed. You'll sleep in Samu's room anyway. Your couch is too uncomfortable. Sucks to be you. I wasn't the one who bled all over it. The one before that was perfectly fine. I hate you, Atsumu. Yeah. See, I don't give a shit. Come after your mission. You still have the key. Okay. Dash. A few days have passed since the twins returned to Inarizaki. Maybe even a few weeks. Atsumu has lost all sense of time. He doesn't sleep much, eats only when Osamu forces him to, which is extremely suspicious to his brother. But whenever Osamu asks him what's wrong, Atsumu deflects and blames it on the stress of the last 2 years. It passes. Somehow. He's okay. Or at least that's what Atsumu keeps telling himself, because the alternative is to be weak when right now, he can be anything but that. Osamu does him good, distracts him from his thoughts about everything that happened, from his thoughts about Kyumi. Kyumi. You alright, Tsumu? It's Aaron who snaps him out of his thoughts. He's gently smiling at him, but his face is plastered with concern. Atsumu's eyes are wide open when he stares at him, his heart still racing because of the very man who has turned his world upside down. Atsumu wonders how Kyumi is doing. He shouldn't. Yeah. Atsumu forces a shallow smile. Everything's fine. They're at Kita's house. Aaron, Omimi, Jinjima, they're all here. It's good to see Osamu slowly starting to warm up to them again. The twins have spent enough time on their own. It was Osamu who eventually suggested meeting up with the others and Atsumu just nodded along. Everything according to his pace. Atsumu still treats him with kid gloves. The last thing he wants to do is irritate Osamu. His brother deserves the best and Atsumu is more than willing to give it to him. So, when Osamu suggested meeting the others, Atsumu knew his brother was taking one step after another in the right direction. When he asked for Rin, hoping to ease his nightmares, Atsumu's heart pounded with hope. It's good. They are slowly getting back to normal. Or at least Osamu is. He's doing well, Kita says, standing next to Aaron and Atsumu. They watch their friends from the doorway. Kita puts a hand on Atsumu's shoulder. His gaze is warm. He'll be fine. Yeah. Atsumu's smile remains shallow. He nods, turns his gaze back to Osamu who is engaged in a silly discussion with Jinjima. They laugh. Atsumu's heart melts. It's a sight he's longed to see for years. Will you follow me for a sec? Kita nods toward the library when Atsumu's confused expression meets first him and then Aaron. Aaron stands beside them, his arms crossed in front of his chest, stifling a grin. It's as if he knows exactly what Atsumu is about to face, and his excitement is barely contained. Atsumu hesitates at first, his mind racing with various possibilities of what Kita might want to talk about. There's a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, a fleeting moment of doubt that crosses his mind. But then Aaron gives him a gentle nudge as if to reassure him that everything will be alright. What should he even fear? This is Kita-san. This is Kita-san. Ah yes, he had every reason to be scared. Atsumu takes a deep breath and follows Kita into the library, his heart thudding in his chest as he tries to prepare himself for whatever conversation is about to unfold. He glances back at his brother once more, noting the laughter and lightness in Osamu's eyes, but still, something feels a little weird. Atsumu shakes it off. He can talk to his brother later. Once inside the quiet room, Kita gently closes the shoji door behind them. He turns to Atsumu with a sympathetic gaze, the weight of the past 2 years visible in golden weary eyes. Atsumu. Kita begins, his tone calm and reassuring. I see that Osamu is looking much better now, and that's a great relief. He smiles just before he starts to frown a little. But you seem off. Huh? His eyes are wide open, his gaze a little puzzled. Atsumu's shoulders tense slightly, he can't help but fidget with his fingers. Kita can't help but chuckle a little at the way he reacts. I just mean, he clears his throat. I just mean you're in your head a lot. Oh. Atsumu frowns and averts his gaze from Kita. He isn't wrong. It's not that he hasn't always been thinking a lot about certain things, it's just strange how quiet he's been lately. Atsumu knows that's exactly what Kita meant. It's not typical for such a loudmouth like Atsumu to stay silent so much. What happened to his obnoxious, cocky self? Well, right now, he can't bring himself to pretend that everything is like it used to be. Right now, all his energy is devoted to helping Osamu to recover, to heal, to make his pain fade away. It doesn't matter how Atsumu feels right now. His sorrow and worries are nothing compared to what his brother had to go through. Everything that matters here and right now is Osamu. And yet he can't stop thinking about Kyumi. I miss you. Atsumu closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. His heart is lodged in his throat, the beat of it deafening. Yeah, he admits eventually, his voice hushed. It's just a lot right now. A tight smile. It's fake. I know. Kita responds calmly, his eyes never straying from Atsumu. I understand. But he could never. Because how is he ever supposed to understand that Atsumu has started to like the very person who is part of this whole mess? How is Atsumu ever supposed to explain to anyone that he has such deep feelings for someone he needs to kill sooner or later to protect his own brother? How will they ever understand that Atsumu has fallen for his enemy? That he means almost as much to him as Osamu does? No one will ever understand. The past couple of years have been ugh. I can't even describe it. Atsumu. Kita places a hand on Atsumu's shoulder, his gaze warm and understanding. Atsumu's heartbeat quickens, a soft blush covers his cheeks. I want you to understand that you're not alone in this. We're all here for both of you. Osamu is recovering, and you, too, need to take care of yourself. You don't have to shoulder everything by yourself, you know? Kita smiles, and it's genuine, warm. Lean on us when you need to. It's such simple words that carry so much weight. And Atsumu is grateful to him. Really? Still. Yeah. Atsumu nods gratitude, and apprehension mingling in his eyes. Something's off. Atsumu feels weird. Thanks, Kita-san. You did well. Praises Kita, cupping Atsumu's cheeks and caressing them with his thumbs. Atsumu's skin burns under his touch, his gaze caught in Kita's eyes. I'm really proud of you. Atsumu sucks in a shaky breath and closes his eyes. It hurts. Just a little. There is nothing to be proud of. Thanks, whispers Atsumu, grasping Kita's wrists. He stares back into warm hazel eyes. He is not alone. They are all here for him. Atsumu should be fine. Thank you, Kita-san. It's fine. Everything is okay. He's back home. I think. Kita starts and there's a cheeky smile lingering on his lips. It's time to return, yeah. What did you call it again? To return, yeah, baby? Atsumu tilts his head, his gaze somewhat confused. Kita raises an eyebrow, then elaborates. Benihime has missed you. And yes. How could Atsumu ever forget her? Dash. As the twins make their way back home from Kita's house, the atmosphere is much lighter than it used to be when they first arrived. They chat casually about the day they've spent with their friends and Osamu can't help but chuckle every time he looks at the thing on Atsumu's back. I can't believe you survived these last 2 years without Benihime, he says, a hint of disbelief in his voice. Then he snorts. I can't believe Kita-san took her away from you. Atsumu rolls his eyes but can't hide the fond smile tugging at the corners of his lips. He shifts and fastens the shoulder strap, where the sheath of his katana now rests comfortably, a reassuring weight that's been missing for far too long. He then chuckles too, feeling a warmth in his chest at the mention of his beloved weapon. Well, I got lucky at some point, he admits. Found your knife, you know. Osamu raises an eyebrow, a smirk playing on his lips. My knife? Really now? Atsumu grins, his shoulders shaking with quiet laughter. Yeah, I mean, it's nothing compared to Benihime, but it did the job. Fucking did the job. Osamu mimics, scoffing and feigning a dismissive attitude. Yeah, stupid katana doesn't even come close to my knife. Yeah, just too petty to admit it. Oh, Atsumu narrows his eyes playfully, defensive. Fucking watch it, Samu. Call her stupid again and I'll show you who it really is. Yeah, Osamu snorts theirs, a playful glint in his icy grey eyes. It's you, Dumbus. No one else. Atsumu wants to smack him affectionately. His grin turns a little, irritated. You know, Samu, you could have used a bit of style, especially with that knife of yours. Osamu raises an eyebrow, playfully feigning insult. Oh, what's wrong with my knife? Huh? Atsumu chuckles, their pace matching their verbal sparring. He flails his arms, has a smug look on his face as he continues to babble nonsense. Well, for starters, it's not nearly as elegant as 𝒂𝒑𝒔. Osamu smirks, clearly enjoying their back and forth. Who needs elegance when you've got reliability? Atsumu laughs, genuinely enjoying this moment of sibling rivalry. Reliability is good and all, but style, Samu, style is everything. Osamu smirks and shakes his head, looking at the sheath that holds Atsumu's katana, unable to resist the urge to push his brother's buttons. You know, Atsumu, 𝒂𝒑𝒔 might be elegant and all, but she's not as versatile as my knife. Atsumu raises an eyebrow, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Oh really? You call that tiny thing versatile? Atsumu scoffs playfully. Please Samu, who do ya wanna fool? Look at 𝒂𝒑𝒔. Atsumu pats the sheath on his back proudly, his grin widening as he speaks. She got style and range. Style and range, my ass, Osamu scoffs, shaking his head in mock disbelief. All you need is precision, and my knife's got that in spades. The twins continue to bicker good-naturedly as they walk side by side, the sun beginning to descend in the sky. Osamu teases Atsumu that he probably couldn't handle his knife, and Atsumu, always up for a friendly argument, shoots back with a playful retort. It feels good. Familiar. As if everything is perfectly fine again. Atsumu's gaze keeps drifting down to Osamu's belt loop, where the sheath of his knife is now attached. He remembers wearing it these past few months, almost a full year, as he tried to find his brother. It made him feel closer to Osamu, let him fight as if his twin had been right by his side this whole time. But now, it's in the right place, just where it belongs. Osamu has his knife back, and Atsumu has his katana by his side. Just the way it should be. Another step towards normalcy. However, as they continue walking and Atsumu's gaze keeps drifting to his brother, he notices Osamu being stuck in his thoughts. He doesn't bother to look left or right. Instead, Osamu's gaze is constantly fixed on the ground before him. Something's off. Did something happen? Osamu's gaze snaps to Atsumu, looking a little startled. Huh? Your head is fuming. Atsumu adjusts the shoulder strap again and squares his shoulders to relieve some tension. Did anyone say something stupid? Osamu tilts his head and stares at his brother in confusion for a few more seconds. Then he suppresses a faint sheepish grin, shakes his head, and exhales deeply. Nah, he begins and chuckles a little. No, everything's fine. It's just odd to see everyone again, you know? Feels kind of weird. Osamu nods. Yeah. Recognizing Atsumu's concern, he elaborates, not the bad kind of weird. I really miss them all and it almost felt like before. Almost? Atsumu prods, concern lacing his voice. He furrows his brows, trying to understand what's bothering his brother. I dunno. Osamu takes a deep breath, avoiding Atsumu's gaze. He hesitates for a moment, looking a bit uncomfortable, nervous even. But then, he finally admits, I kinda expected everyone to be there. Atsumu blinks in confusion because surely everyone was there. Kita-san, Aaron, Jinjima, Omimi, Akagi, Rasiki. They've seen them all. So, what does Osamu mean by, oh? Atsumu's heart sinks as he comprehends the underlying meaning of Osamu's words. He shifts his weight uneasily, unable to ignore the sudden heaviness that settles in the pit of his stomach. For a moment, he's unsure of how to respond, caught between the urge to probe further and the instinct to give his brother the space he might need. Tsunarin, Atsumu mumbles softly, the name feeling heavy on his tongue. It's been a while since they last saw him, and the memories of their past interactions are still fresh in his mind. Atsumu no sooner has been watching them for the past few weeks, that he has deliberately stayed out of their way to give Osamu the time that he needs. He's kept an eye on the twins while they've been holed up in their home. He left food on their doorstep when Atsumu was supposed to go get groceries but couldn't bring himself to leave the house. Was it because Atsumu felt so strange or because he didn't want to leave his brother alone? He doesn't know. Atsumu is grateful to Suna that he has been able to spend every second with his brother since their return without having to worry about anything else. And of course, Osamu hasn't noticed any of this. The last thing Rin wants is to force himself on the twins. He knows it is important to give Osamu the time he needs. He would always set his needs aside for him. It's the same love that Atsumu has for his brother, just in a different way. Atsumu hasn't yet told Osamu that he has texted him. Osamu doesn't know he'll have Rin back soon. Atsumu hopes it's okay. You miss him, huh? His voice is soft. Osamu's expression shifts, a wistful longing lingering in his gaze. He nods slowly, his usual composure wavering slightly. Yeah, he admits, his voice barely above a whisper. It's been different, without him. Atsumu's chest tightens. He is well aware of the bond between Osamu and Suna, a connection that ran deep beneath the surface, transcending the typical dynamics of their friendship. He is aware Osamu's heart has been crying out for his missing third all this time. Because isn't it the same for Atsumu? They continue walking and eventually return to their apartment. Osamu unlocks the door, and they enter, taking off their shoes in the genkan. The familiarity of their own space provides a sense of comfort, but Osamu freezes as he takes a step toward the living room. There, leaning against the kitchen counter and glancing up from his phone, is none other than Suna, the lights of his screen illuminating his face. His presence radiates a mixture of emotions, ranging from surprise to relief, and his expression is an intricate dance of hesitation and longing. Atsumu watches as a million emotions wash over Osamu's face. His brother's icy gray eyes widen, reflecting both disbelief and relief. For a moment, the world seems to stand still as they keep staring at each other, the jacket in Osamu's grip slowly slipping out of his hand. Atsumu's heart swells as he watches his brother's reaction to Suna's unexpected presence. He knows Osamu's heart has been aching for his missing best friend all this time. Suna isn't just that for him, of course. He's a part of their lives that has been sorely missed, a love he'll never be able to let go. Almost like. Atsumu gulps. The room is filled with an electrifying tension, unspoken words lingering in the air, making the moment all the more poignant. Suna, too, is uncertain how to act, his nervousness very much palpable. He shoves his phone into his pocket, swallows the obvious lump in his throat, and manages to choke out a simple, "Hey." Atsumu can't help but feel a pang of sympathy for both his brother and Suna. It would be embarrassing if they weren't in a situation like this, where emotions run deep, and words seem insufficient. Never before has Atsumu seen Suna so worn down. But the things love does to you, right? What surprises Atsumu is when he spots Osamu's lips trembling. His brother is trying to hold back a flood of emotions, pressing his lips tightly together in an attempt to maintain his composure. Atsumu can sense the struggle within Osamu, the tears that threaten to break free from their confines. It stings. Atsumu's own heart aches with his brother's pain. Osamu sucks in a sharp breath, and his facade begins to crack. Without a word, he moves toward Suna, his steps unsteady but determined. Suna, too, pushes himself off the counter, anticipation and hope shining in his eyes as he takes a step closer to Osamu. Their eyes are fixed solely on each other. It happens so fast. In the blink of an eye, the two are reunited. The momentum of their emotions washes over them, and Atsumu watches with a heart filled with hope and pain as Osamu crashes into Suna's arms. They hug each other tightly, so tightly, as if to make up for all the time they've spent apart. It's a moment of reconnection, of profound relief, and Atsumu can see that Suna has no intention of ever letting Osamu go again. Atsumu knows what Osamu is feeling. He knows the depths of his brother's emotions, how his heart must have been aching for Suna all this time. The pain of separation, the longing for him, it's something Atsumu understands all too well. It's something Atsumu himself needs to choke down. His heart throbs even more as he watches them. Atsumu isn't just witnessing their reunion, he's feeling it deep within himself. The overwhelming relief that flows between Osamu and Rin is almost tangible. It's as if their hearts, once divided, are now stitching themselves back together. As if being close to the other is enough to be cured. Atsumu knows because he misses it. The proximity. The one person who inevitably understands him. Ah, shit. Suna's hand is buried in Osamu's hair, the other one pulling him close by his waist. He presses a gentle kiss to his temple, a tender gesture filled with too much longing for the very man in his arms. He closes his eyes and murmurs in hushed tones, "I missed you so much, Samu." And Osamu hugs Suna even tighter in response. Their connection runs deep, and the burden of their separation has left scars that only this reunion can heal. Both have their eyes closed, savoring the moment, and Atsumu can feel the intensity of their emotions in the air. But there's something more going on beneath the surface for Atsumu. As he observes their reunion, his own heart aches in a way that he can't quite comprehend. He's genuinely happy for his brother, of course, and he's relieved that their friend is back where he belongs, but there's an underlying feeling that doesn't sit right. The longer he gazes at the two embracing figures, the more this profound pain begins to gnaw at Atsumu's heart. It's like millions of knives twisting within him, causing his heart to bleed and bleed and bleed. He knows he should be happy, yet the bitterness of his own emotions clouds his joy. Atsumu tries to choke down the rising lump in his throat, to keep his emotions in check, but he can't hold them back any longer. He has been able to suppress it so well all these past weeks, and the moment Osamu becomes weak for Rin, his body decides to break down too. What the fuck? That's not possible. Not now. Not ever. His whole body starts to shake as his heartache becomes almost unbearable. He forces a smile onto his face as he passes Suna and Osamu on his way to the bathroom, trying to hide the turmoil within him. He doesn't want to disturb them. This moment belongs to them. "You'll be fine," murmurs Kyumi, but fuck. Atsumu needs this to stop. As he reaches the bathroom and closes the door gently, he can't keep up the facade any longer and slides down the door to the floor, burying his face in his hands. His heart pounds too hard, his thoughts are too loud, 2 drops trickle down his cheeks, leaving thin wet streaks on his hot skin. Atsumu's eyes sting, his heart cries. It's fine. It's not. More tears start to spill, uncontrollable and overwhelming. The bathroom walls seem to close in on him as he lets out a silent sob. It's a moment of vulnerability he never intended for anyone to see, a tidal wave of complex emotions crashing down upon him. It's fine. He's fine. He shouldn't feel that way. It's nothing. He's fine. He's not. His priority is Osamu. His own feelings don't matter right now, and Osamu is okay. He has Rin. He is happy. Why the hell isn't Atsumu happy? What is going on? Atsumu's heart aches with a depth he can't explain, a longing that he's buried deep within himself for far too long. His mind races with memories of Kyumi, of the shared moments and unspoken understandings, of the connection that once bloomed between them. Something that is now lost. The pain of this realization gnaws at Atsumu's insides, threatening to consume him whole. He's overwhelmed with the knowledge that he'll never have what his brother has with Suna, that he's lost Kyumi forever. It's a bitter pill to swallow, one that he's been trying to avoid for so long. Atsumu sits on the bathroom floor, his body racked with silent sobs, and he can't help but feel like a mess. His emotions eat him up, twisting and turning within him like a tempestuous storm. The yearning for Kyumi is almost unbearable, a sharp ache that he's been trying to suppress for the sake of his brother. But now, in this moment of vulnerability, Atsumu can't deny the truth any longer. He's hurting, and the pain is suffocating. The weight of his feelings crushes him, leaving him gasping for air. His hand clutches at his chest, as if trying to quell the relentless throb of his heart, another one gripping the roots of his hair, trying not to go insane. It's a futile attempt, a feeble gesture in the face of such overwhelming emotions. Atsumu keeps trying to convince himself that he's fine, that he'll get through this, but the ache persists, refusing to be ignored. The truth remains, and the pain within him is a constant reminder of what he's lost. The emptiness in his chest feels impregnable, as if a piece of him has been irrevocably taken away. When do you finally stop being so reckless? Atsumu doesn't know. The only thing he knows is that he misses Kyumi and that he has no idea how he will ever get over the pain of never seeing him again. It hurts. But there's nothing that can make it stop. Ever. There is no way to fix this. Kyumi, Atsumu thinks when he shouldn't. I miss you. It hurts.